In 1791, a slave uprising kicked off the only successful slave revolt in history. But it started with a party, a really, really angry party. First, let's set the stage. Here's the world our story unfolds in, around 1802, with Port-au-Prince right at the heart of it. Boukman invokes the spirits, promising that the god of the enslaved will lead them to victory. The crowd chants, drums pound, this is a revolution in the making. Within days, the northern plain is ablaze. Plantations burn, masters flee, the slaves have lit a fire that will consume Saint-Domingue. On August 22nd, 1791, the slaves of Saint-Domingue decide they've had enough of 3/5 of a person and start a party with fire and machetes. Within weeks, 100,000 enslaved people join the uprising. That's a lot of people saying no to sugar, and a lot of plantations saying poof. By October, 1,800 plantations are destroyed. That's 1,800 sugar daddies who just lost their sweet, sweet income. The French are not amused. And here's Port-au-Prince up close, where our story really plays out. In September 1792, French ships glide into Cap-Français harbor like they own the place, which technically they do. But the passengers are about to learn that ownership is a matter of opinion. Sonthonax and Pulver'll step onto the dock, bringing 6,000 fresh troops and a decree from France. Free people of color now have equal rights. The local white planters are not amused. The commissioners realize that enforcing this decree means picking a side. And in Saint-Domingue, picking a side is like choosing which hornet's nest to kick. Sonthonax steps onto a balcony in Cap-Français, unrolls a decree, and grins like a man about to drop the world's hottest mixtape. The crowd erupts, tears, cheers, and a few confused French planters wondering if this is a very elaborate prank. With one signature, Sonthonax turns thousands of former slaves into soldiers for France, a brilliant move or a desperate gamble. In 1793, Toussaint Louverture saunters into the Spanish camp in Santo Domingo with the swagger of a man who just found a better job offer. The Spanish, delighted to have a guy who actually knows the terrain, hand Toussaint a colonel's commission. He signs it with a flourish. Now a colonel in the Spanish army, Toussaint drills his troops with the intensity of a man who knows he's building something bigger than a paycheck. In September 1793, British redcoats wade ashore at Jeremy, looking like they're here for a beach holiday, if the beach were a slave revolt and the hotel a burning plantation. General White sets up shop in Jeremy, shaking hands with French planters who are thrilled to swap one European master for another, as long as it's not the guy with the machete. In May 1794, Toussaint gets a letter from France. Slavery is abolished, buddy. He reads it, grins, and thinks time to switch teams. Now the big move, the road from Cap-Français to Port-au-Prince. Toussaint marches his army right into a Spanish-held town, but instead of attacking, he shakes hands with the French commander. The Spanish are left scratching their heads. Spanish flags come down all over the north as Toussaint's former allies watch their conquest slip away. One Spanish officer mutters, "We taught him too well." By 1795, Toussaint has a new hobby, liberating Spanish towns. He rides into Santo Domingo like he owns the place, which, honestly, he's about to. The Spanish governor in Santo Domingo gets the memo. Toussaint's army is at the gates. He signs a surrender faster than you can say Treaty of Basel. Spain cedes Santo Domingo to France in the Treaty of Basel, and Toussaint adds a whole new colony to his resume. Not bad for a former slave. By August 1798, the British have had enough. Yellow fever has turned their army into a collection of sneezing, sweating ghosts. At Port-au-Prince, redcoats shuffle onto ships like they're fleeing a burning theater, except the theater is a disease-ridden colony. As the last sail disappears over the horizon, Toussaint grins. The British have lost 20,000 men for nothing. Saint-Domingue is still not theirs. Toussaint Louverture, fresh off evicting the British, decides the best way to protect his island is to write a constitution, with himself as governor-general for life. Modest. The Constitution declares Saint-Domingue an autonomous colony under French sovereignty, but Toussaint is the boss. He even gives himself the power to choose his successor. Democracy? Never heard of it. Toussaint now rules Saint-Domingue with absolute authority. The island is prosperous, the plantations are running, and the former slaves are working for wages. It's a revolution that actually works for now. Napoleon Bonaparte looks at Saint-Domingue and sees dollar signs. He doesn't care about freedom, he wants sugar money. So he sends his brother-in-law, General Charles Leclerc, with 20,000 troops. Nothing says family reunion like an invasion fleet. Leclerc's orders: restore French authority and, oh yeah, re-establish slavery. Toussaint's going to love this. On February 2nd, 1802, General Leclerc's fleet appears off Cap-Français like an uninvited guest with 20,000 armed friends. Henri Christophe, Toussaint's man in charge, takes one look at the armada and grins. He has a plan. Burn everything. Cap-Français goes up in smoke. Christophe rides through the inferno as flames consume the city, leaving Leclerc nothing but ashes and a very bad first impression. Toussaint's army meets the French at Ravine-à-Couleuvres. It's a natural bottleneck, perfect for a dramatic last stand or a very crowded traffic jam. The fighting is brutal, bayonets and machetes in a narrow gorge. Toussaint's men hold their ground, but the French keep coming like ants at a picnic. Outnumbered and running low on bullets, Toussaint orders a retreat. He lives to fight another day, and that day will be a doozy. May 6, 1802. Toussaint Louverture rides out to meet General Leclerc. He's about to make a deal with the devil, but the devil has a French accent. They shake hands. Toussaint gets amnesty and retirement to his plantation. Leclerc gets a promise of peace. It's a gentleman's agreement, which means it's worth exactly the paper it's not written on. Toussaint retires to his plantation in Uri. He tends his garden, believing he's earned peace. But Napoleon's orders are clear: arrest the old general. The betrayal is already in motion. Toussaint Louverture, the man who outfoxed 3 empires, is about to learn that trusting a French general is like trusting a cat with a goldfish. General Brunet invites Toussaint to a friendly meeting to discuss plantation matters. Toussaint arrives, probably expecting tea and compliments. Surprise! Brunet's soldiers grab Toussaint, clap him in chains, and drag him toward the coast. The old general's face says it all. I really should have seen this coming. Toussaint is shipped off to a French dungeon. But Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who'd been playing nice with Leclerc, suddenly realizes he's next on the Get Betrayed list. Dessalines tears off his French uniform. He's done playing Leclerc's game. Now he's got a machete and a score to settle. He rallies the troops, black and mulatto, former enemies, now united. No more French lies, he roars. Freedom or death. By mid-1802, yellow fever is throwing a rager in Saint-Domingue, and the French are the only guests. 15,000 troops are down with the shakes. General Leclerc, Napoleon's brother-in-law, catches the fever himself. Turns out being married to Napoleon Bonaparte doesn't make you immune to mosquitoes. Leclerc expires on November 2nd, 1802. His last words? Probably tell Napoleon this island is a mosquito-infested death trap. Spoiler, they didn't listen. Enter General Rochambeau. He's got a new strategy: make terror great again. His playbook? Drownings, mass executions, and man-eating dogs. The French troops, with a join-the-Navy spirit, toss shackled prisoners into the bay. Splash. Gurgle. Next. It's a grim assembly line of death. But Rochambeau's scorched earth policy has a tiny flaw. It turns every survivor into a furious rebel. Congratulations, Rochambeau, you just created an army of Avengers. November 18th, 1803. Dessalines, on a white horse, leads a charge that would make any cavalry general weep with envy. The French lines? Not so much. The French, already battered by yellow fever and Rochambeau's terrible ideas, decide that fighting Dessalines is a bad career move. They break and run. The French surrender at Cap-Français. Rochambeau, the terror maestro, is now a prisoner. Dessalines doesn't just win, he wins with style. November 28th, 1803. Rochambeau, fresh out of terror ideas, decides to surrender. He hands his sword to Dessalines, who accepts with a grin that says, "Told you so." The remaining French troops scramble onto ships like tourists fleeing a bad resort. Dessalines watches from the shore, arms crossed, enjoying the show. As the last sail disappears over the horizon, Dessalines turns to his men. "Gentlemen," he announces, "we just evicted France. Rent was overdue by a century." January 1st, 1804. Dessalines stands before a crowd in Gonaives, holding the Act of Independence like it's the world's best receipt. "We're done with France. Forever." Dessalines reads aloud. "We have avenged our ancestors. No more whites on this soil." The crowd roars, but some look nervous. That's a pretty bold clause. He tears the white from the French tricolor and stitches it back together, blue and red only. The new flag is born. The crowd goes wild. France is officially unfriended. October 6th, 1804. Dessalines decides that president for life just doesn't have the right ring to it. Time for promotion. The bishop places the crown on Dessalines' head. It's a bit heavy. Emperor Jacques has a nice absolute monarch ring to it. Dessalines, now Emperor Jacques I, waves to the crowd. He's got the crown, the robes, and the absolute power. Just don't mention the budget.